Hopes for a Gaza ceasefire and wider regional peace have never felt more distant. Alright, so this news was suggested by ha 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 ha, I'm not going to say my name. And yeah, so if you want to suggest some news, check the link in here in the description and send me a link or a news for me to read. The air and drone attacks between Israel and Hezbollah and Lebanon mark a major escalation, writes Belthrough, but they also prompt the question of whether a ceasefire in Gaza will be enough to stop war spreading to Israel's northern border. Okay, yeah, this thing never stops. Oh my god. In Lebanon, the sky flashed red above the blasted southern neighborhoods. In Israel, the air raid sirens wailed as rockets flew back. This borderland has now become one of the most volatile fault lines of the region and a potential trigger point for a much wider war. Okay, this is concerning. This morning, Israel announced it had sent 100 fighter jets over Lebanon, striking what is said were thousands of rocket launchers that Lebanese militant group Hezbollah had poised to attack. Hezbollah said it sent over 300 Katyusha rockets and a large number of drones towards military positions in Israel in response to the killing of Fuad Shukr, their top commander that Israel assassinated in a strike in Beirut southern suburbs last month, a retaliation the world has been holding its breath for. Yeah. Against this exchange of fire, ceasefire talks for the war in Gaza were set to continue today in the Egyptian capital. Representatives from all sides are expected to be there. Just last week, we saw arguably the most intense flurry yet of international diplomacy to bring an end to a rapidly spiraling situation, sparking hope that a deal might be in the running. Top diplomats, including British Foreign Secretary David Lammy, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and the French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné, shuttled between key figures. Lammy warned this was a dangerous moment for the Middle West, while Blinken called the talks maybe the last opportunity to pull the region back from the brink, free the hostages, and secure ceasefire. The reality is that they're going to do this, the war is not going to end, and the government is going to still be laughing at us. That's the reality. But on Sunday morning, the hopes of imminent end to the intense bloodshed in Gaza, where health officials say 40,000 people have been killed under Israel's bombardment, and to bring home the remaining 115 people taken hostage since Hamas' bloody 7 October attacks seemed ever more distant. And it raised again the question of whether a ceasefire in Gaza could bring in the conflict between Israel and Lebanon its backers run the wider region. In the immediate aftermath in Israel, the opinion is that Hezbollah has launched its retaliation for the killing of its top leader in Beirut, and that rather than this being the moment the region dissolves into total chaos, the cross-border exchange of fire would return to normalcy. Hezbollah has said the first phase of its attacks is now over. The announcement means the end of their operations for this stage, which we see as them politely saying we are looking for a way out. We would rather avoid a full-scale war, said Amos Harel, non-resident senior fellow at the Brookings Institution's think tank and an Israeli defense correspondent. But business as usual is terrible for both sides. There are 6 50,000 Israelis not allowed back in their homes. There are double that number on the Lebanese side, he continued. The death toll in Lebanon, which was already in the grips of a profound humanitarian crisis before the recent surge in violence, has now reached 133 civilians since last October. Israeli airstrikes in South Lebanon and the Bekaa Valley have resulted in widespread casualties and the destruction of essential infrastructure, according to the Action Aid. The ongoing hostilities have displaced around 112,000 people, many of whom are now living in overcrowded and under-resourced host communities. Ceasefire talks will continue in Cairo, although Harold believes the main obstacle is that leaders from both sides are not interested in a deal. That's what I believe. There is no deal way to pressure Benjamin Netanyahu into agreeing to a ceasefire. He's playing for time. He keeps hiding details regarding the deal. He has no interest for political reasons for the survival of his coalition, he added. Jasmine Gamal, a political analyst and former Middle East advisor at the U.S. Department of Defense, said the attacks demonstrate the futility of the current round of talks at the escalating tensions. If a breakthrough in negotiations had been imminent, it would have been unlikely that Hezbollah would have jeopardized it with an attack, she said. Alright. The continued regional escalation has also highlighted the shortcomings of the Biden administration's diplomacy vis-a-vis the parties to the conflict, she added, particularly Biden's failure to exercise any meaningful leverage over Prime Minister Netanyahu, whose intransigence has frustrated Israel negotiations and brought the region to the brink of war. There is growing pressure on Netanyahu in Israel, where polls suggest rising support for a ceasefire as the Israeli public grows fatigued. Regional civilian leaders in the north of Israel are furious with government for not listening to them. They feel abandoned and are angry at the attack of additional funds or a solution for those who have evacuated the north. Our feelings are that the border of Israel is now 40 kilometers further south than it was before the war. Giorgio South, the head of Upper Galilee Regional Council, told the Independent following mass evacuations. I'm reading something that is not possible to see. Let me shrink myself. Okay. The government is not with us. They are not speaking with us. They are not consulting with us. They are not supporting us. They are ignoring the civilian heads in the north. There have been many promises from the U.S. that the ceasefire talks in Gaza would also bring an end to the fighting between Israel and Lebanon. But in the north of Israel, the feeling is that is not the case. Zotz believes there needs to be a disconnect between negotiations for ceasefire in Gaza with the situation along the northern front, adding, the mistake which Hezbollah and Hamas want is that we will connect those two borders. The state of Israel should be dealing with the south separately to the north. The goals should be different. This was echoed by Nitzan Peleg, mayor of the Lower Galilee municipality, who was more hawkish. He said his region did not think a ceasefire with Gaza was enough for us, and that a diplomatic solution would just push it all down the road. He went as far as to suggest an Israeli ground incursion into Lebanon to create a buffer zone, an action which experts believe could trigger a massive regional conflict and untold devastation in Lebanon. Alright, there are a lot of stuff going on there. But what I said is what I said. Let's read the comments here. This is the human race at its worst. All participants have behaved badly and without integrity at times. There are citizens out there who would just like to have normal lives. But there are political leaders, and surely Netanyahu is one of the worst, who are just keeping this death and destruction going. And the result is generations of hatred. I don't know if it's just his fault, but it's also his fault. His fault that everyone that has involvement for both sides when it comes to the government people. Harold Brookins institution, there is no real way to pressure Netanyahu into agreeing to a ceasefire. He's playing for time. He keeps hiding details regarding the deal. He has no interest for political reasons for the survival of his coalition. Time for the ICC chief prosecutor applications for arrest warrants for that person and the others to be issued. The prosecutor urged judges to rule on warrants for Israeli Hamas leaders only yesterday. They should do it. There should be no further delay. Yeah. Sometimes I think this war is not never going to end. That's a real problem there. Well, there.